Stop buying school supplies for a second.
You might already have more than you think, and it could save you a lot of money.
Parents are spending hundreds on back to school, and most of it is avoidable.
This episode will show you what you should do instead.
Why does back to school shopping feel like you walk in for pencils and leave $300 poor?
And somehow your kid still says they need more stuff. Like how?
Exactly. So today we're breaking down how to actually save money on back to school without cutting corners.
From the obvious stuff like sales to the things most parents don't even think about, but probably should. My name is Katie.
My name is Celine. So let's get into it. So Katie, I know you have 3 children. How do you save for back to school?
One of the things that I found that I feel like is pivotal is to always start with a budget and then really stick to the budget as much as I can, which I find is a lot easier when I know what I'm shopping for. If I just let my kids go into the store and wander and pick all the things they want, then I definitely always end up way over budget.
Yeah, that's great. And then you can take that list and compare it to what are some of the sales or the deals that are out there. So that way when you go into the store, you're not just buying, you're actually sticking to your list and then comparing it to the sales to make sure you're saving money at the same time.
And I have found too that it helps me to stick to the generics, especially when it comes to the school supplies, because those are the things that my kids care about like the least, where it really doesn't matter if they're getting the name brand or the generic, because I know when it comes to clothes, at least one of my boys is going to be very specific about what brands he wants and what type of clothes he wants. So I try to save when I can and when the name brand really doesn't make a difference.
I think one of the biggest expenses when it comes back to school is not so much the supplies, but the clothes. Clothes can be really pricey.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially once your kids get a little bit older, again, where they start to care about those brand names and it really matters. So I appreciate my little one that could kind of not really care less what the name brand is or where the clothes come from. But another thing that really helps me is I do have 2 that are really close in age. So typically I'm looking for hand-me-downs. What has this one grown out of, but this one would still fit. So that's really helpful. And then you've been gracious enough to actually repurpose some of your kids, used clothing to me that doesn't fit anymore, which is really helpful if you know people, that you can share clothes with, that once your kids have outgrown them, if you know someone else that can use them, or, do kind of a swap with different families, that can be really helpful as well.
And then if you don't know anybody, there's thrifting.
One of my sons has actually been asking to go to the thrift store recently. He realizes that I'm probably more likely to say yes to items there than if we go to, a more expensive store. So he's been coming to me and actually asking to go to the thrift store, which was shocking, but much appreciated.
Thinking financial freedom already.
Exactly.
I love that. Making his money go a little bit further.
Something else I found that's really helpful is to honestly just take inventory of what we already have in our home. Especially having multiple kids, they always end up with extra school supplies at the end of the year. So when they're cleaning up those cubbies, those lockers, things like that, they come home with it in their backpacks, and they've got bags and bags of excess stuff that was on the list that they didn't use throughout the year. So I usually have like a cabinet that I put those in. I don't always remember to check it, but it is very helpful because I realize, oh my gosh, they have some leftover stuff from last year that we could easily just reuse and repurpose for the new school year.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Also, do things have to get rebought? I'm just thinking my son had his speaker phones that he needed. Those are things you can reuse year to year. You don't have to buy brand new every single time. Another way you can save some money is going in with other parents and buying some of those bulk items so that you're paying less per item.
Yeah, I feel like that adds up more than you may think. And then that way you're not ending up with a bunch of excess at the end of the year again, like I was mentioning before. Another thing that I feel like adds up really quickly, or can add up really quickly, is once your kids need like expensive specific devices, like those graphing calculators, things like that. So again, if you know someone that maybe has a hand-me-down, or, you can buy secondhand online, I feel like that really, is helpful, especially for something so unique like that, that's only going to have like such a short shelf life. And then, it's just helpful to repurpose it and get a discount when you can.
One piece of advice I received that I thought was really helpful was sometimes don't just go out and buy the second you get your school list. Wait until you actually meet the teacher and see if they need, 1, every supply, 2, do they need it at the beginning of the school year, or is it spread throughout? And 3, sometimes teachers have different lists that the school does not have. And so sometimes you end up overbuying because you think you're being proactive, but you're actually overspending.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate the tip too for maybe they don't need everything right now, whether that's supplies or whether that's clothing. Like they don't have to have it all at once. And then it really helps to, split the cost across several months. Especially I have a younger son who technically, is still in daycare, and he's it restarts, you know, along with school, and we have to pay our supplies fees and things like that. But does he really need new clothes at that point? No. And so I can wait a few months and then kind of offset that cost with my older kids that do want their stuff for like right back to school.
You know you're about to rebuy shoes in 3 to 4 months anyways. You have to buy them all in that beginning of the school year, or can you wait and spread it out throughout the year so that you can budget it as well?
Well, and if you're anything like my son that cares about those specific shoes, Christmas present.
There we go. Perfect. Just a few months later. If you're heading back to school shopping, just remember, you don't have to spend more to get everything your kids need.
Yeah, it's really just about being more intentional with how you shop.
If you have any questions about saving, budgeting, or anything we've talked about today, drop them in the comments.
And if this was helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe.